Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope everyone is safe and taking care. My name is Pranali Raut from Nürnberg, India, and I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you at the A.B.I.S Knowledge Summit. Asia's Broadcasting and Infotainment Show, or A.B.I.S, comprises of the Broadcast India Show, the SCAT India Trade Show, and the Content India Show. At the A.B.I.S Knowledge Summit, we look forward to bringing you engaging panel discussions, interesting fireside chats, and interactive product demos over the next 3 days. Good afternoon, everyone, and a really warm welcome to you. My name is Pranali, and I'm from Nürnberg, India. And to all of you who have been with us since the morning, welcome back. Let's get straight to our next session for the day, and it's the last one for today. Um, it's called Remote Editing and Collaboration with Mr. Niels Stevens, Senior Strategic Development Manager, Digital Video and Audio at Adobe. Mr. Stevens has over 25 years of consultancy experience in the audio and video content creation business, specializing originally in audio post-production. He spent 10 years in the reseller world responsible for sales and training on DAW NLE video systems for most major UK broadcasters and audio post facilities, before moving to Avid Technology as a senior pre-sales consultant in broadcast editing and delivery workflows. Mr. Stevens joined Adobe around 11 years ago as a solution consultant for their video products, just as the profile of the Pro video apps, particularly the Premiere Pro, began to rise substantially in the industry. He is now Senior Strategic Manager for the high-end video post-production market in the UK. However, before Mr. Stevens begins his session, I would like to invite Mr. Chetan Shah from Adobe to say a few words. With more than 3 decades of experience in South Asia's broadcast and post-production industry, Mr. Chetan Shah is a very familiar face in India and around. He has worked with all the top broadcasters across India, helping them set up advanced editorial workflow for narratives, news, sports, promos, and digital platforms. Before I hand over to Mr. Shah, just a quick note to all our attendees. There will be a Q&A at the end of this, so please feel free to drop in your questions in the chat box or the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screens. Mr. Shah, over to you.
Thank you, Pranali. Good evening, everyone. Trust all of you are well and safe. My name is Chetan Shah. As Pranali said, I'm a Senior Manager Strategic Development Team for Creative Cloud for Video Business Unit and based out of Mumbai. If you are from Mumbai or around and from the broadcast or post-production houses, you may have met in past. Been with Adobe for more than 9 years now, and working as a strategic development manager specifically for video products. Just looking back at last 18 months, we've gone through many challenges, and we've learned a lot, especially how to work in the extreme situations. Especially one of the key learning, at least I have seen for most of the post-production professionals, work from home and remote collaboration, which was the biggest challenge because of the lockdown. You couldn't go out. There were a lot of projects going on. Shoots are over. Media is lying in the central location, and how to edit those and get the programs out. So this has actually given as we always say that wherever there is a problem, there is always innovation, and you try to find out some new ways to get work done. And many of you must have already tried and tasted remote collaboration or workflows, which include primarily either sending physical hard drives or maybe setting up a special hardware to have access to your remote machines in the offices or post houses, or even adding softwares and use cloud-based solutions to access your media from home and finish your work. So in today's workshop, along with my colleague Niels Stevens, Senior Manager Strategic Development Team, he's from UK office, we will take you through some of the workflows around Premiere Pro, Adobe Premiere Pro, how you can work from home without installing much of the specialized hardware or software to get access to your media from remote locations, and how you can finish your project more effectively. So with this, I will hand it over to Niels Stevens to show you some of these workflows around Adobe's Creative Cloud platform, as well as with some of our partner solutions along with Premiere. Over to you, Niels.
Thanks, Chetan, and thank you for the introduction, Pranali. Yes, I've been with Adobe for 11 years now, looking after video technical workflows in the UK. Creative Cloud has been around for almost 9 of those years now. And originally, when we announced it, it was really just, I guess, a mechanism for distributing our desktop software. But it has long since passed the point where, you know, most of the value of the Creative Cloud platform itself is represented in the collaborative services and the the cloud, remote cloud hosted aspects of the platform that we will talk a little bit about today. So if I share my screen, I'm just going to share the Creative Cloud desktop application here, which some of you may be familiar with. So this is where you're going to be used to installing your Adobe apps, and it will tell you which ones are available to you within subcategories if you wish. And it will tell you whether they're up to date. So, you know, you blink and you'll miss an update these days. There's always something new being patched or new features being introduced. Look out for some exciting announcements at our Max conference next week as well. That's a free conference. You just need to sign up at max.adobe.com and you'll see lots of free webinars and motivational speeches going on at that event. So that's great. But this, I guess, this application sits at the heart of the Creative Cloud experience. So it's not just a place where you install your apps and update them. It's also, it governs, I suppose, and dictates the experience you're going to have according to your identity within Creative Cloud. So you can see up here, I'm signed in as me, Niels Stevens at adobe.com. That avatar is the actor Martin Clunes. Some people tell me I look like him. But basically my experience of the Creative Cloud application is going to be completely governed by my identity and my login. So if I go across to Files up here on the left-hand side, I can go to Open Sync folder, and that will show me the local synchronized representation of the application. I'm going to need to just, this is tricky. So if I stop sharing, reshare, and share this folder now. I think each time I change to a new window, there we are. This is the local manifestation and synchronization of the files that I have been working on lately. If I return to the Creative Cloud desktop tool, I need to share that application. And I'm going to go this time to File, go to Creative Cloud Web. This will take you to a web portal, which is let's see, here we are. This is the central portal where all of my digital assets within Creative Cloud are held. So you can see I have synced files and cloud documents, which are relative to Photoshop and Illustrator and some of our design apps. You also have libraries. Libraries are a great place for you and your co-workers and any other stakeholders on a production to collaborate and have shared assets available. So if I go to Guatemala library here, this is one I've just shared with Chetan earlier. So while we're busy collaborating on a team project just shortly, if there are any digital assets he wants me to have as part of this production, be it graphics or stock imagery or videos or even music, he can add them to that library there. And this library manifests itself not only in the web portal, but it's also accessible in all of the Creative Cloud applications and also in a mobile app. So your experience of quick and easy retrieval of any of those assets, regardless of which application you're in, is dead straightforward. So I can see the libraries in here. You can also decide who a library is shared with at any point. So I can see right now my Guatemala library has 2 members. That would be myself and Chetan Shah. If you want to add anybody else up here, you can invite and share with people. Crucially, if you invite somebody, you can invite them as a read-only, a view-only participant in a particular library, or you can have them edited. This also means that if you're working on a particular project, you can have, I'm just aware that I'm not sharing that window. I do apologize. This is tricky, this new version of Zoom. Right, there we go. There's the Creative Cloud Desktop tool. Here I see all my libraries for me. The Guatemala one is the one that we're going to collaborate on. Right now it has no assets, but myself and Chetan belong to this library. And I can add other people here where it says invite people. and their credentials and permissions are dictated in this little drop down here. One of the useful aspects of using libraries is that if you have a client or a major stakeholder in a production, you can have them maintain the truth of your digital assets within a production. So making sure that logo and typography is up to date, or fonts, or whatever kind of style guides, colors, or whatever else are relevant to a particular job. You can have one person be the owner of the library, maintain responsibility for the accuracy and veracity of the assets therein, and then it's easily distributed to anybody else who is within that Creative Cloud workgroup for use in any of their other applications. So we are both collaborating on the Creative Cloud library right now. I'm going to switch over to the desktop just for a moment. So if I launch my PC here and I go to Creative Cloud Files, just bear with me 1 second. I must reshare each time I open a new window. Share screen, Creative Cloud Files, share. There we go. So you'll see I have my Creative Cloud. That's a synchronized folder. These are any type of digital assets or other media you may want to share. So this acts very much like a shared cloud folder from any other vendor. You can see I also on my system have OneDrive and for corporate document use, Dropbox is for personal use. And we're going to talk a little bit more about something called Lucid Link later on, because that's a very sophisticated cloud folder sharing architecture that actually almost acts like a cloud NAS, if you will. So what that does is block streaming. It's an intelligent piece of middleware that talks to Amazon S3 storage and makes it appear as if it's mounted on your desktop. That's very useful for a collaboration tool called Premiere Pro Productions that we will come to later on. So Chetan and I are again collaborating, and we have shared a folder called Guatemala Assets. So this is actually where I'm going to keep all of the high resolution video rushes and dailies from the project that we are going to edit on together. So the distinction is libraries is a flat directory structure. It's visible in all applications in a web portal and in the mobile application, and it's meant for, I suppose, lightweight digital assets, stock imagery, iconography, logos, graphics, whatever else, whereas your shared Creative Cloud Assets folder will be for your heavier digital rushes, audio and video files that you've shot that are relevant to the edit that you are going to collaborate on. So if I stop sharing for a moment, then I will show you how Chetan and I will collaborate inside Premiere Pro. So here I bring that application to the foreground. You should see that now. This is what you're faced with when you launch Premiere Pro for the first time and you don't have any kind of application or any kind of project open. So if I just go to, this is the default welcoming window, you'll see that we now have a bunch of in-app tutorials built into Premiere for the benefit of those of you who haven't used it before. Today I'm working with some of the footage related to this Learn Editing Skills chapter here. So if you click on that, it takes you to a web portal and you can see, forgive me, I'll just stop sharing that, share and share that window. You'll see when I'm in the web browser, these are the files that I'm working with today. So should you wish to join along or participate or try this out later on, you can get those files here in our help website simply by clicking on the logo of the aerial cityscape shot here, Learn Editing Skills, and it will take you to the files that you require inside the web portal. So having downloaded those, let me share Premiere Pro again. Here it is. In this case, I have the footage downloaded and synchronized to my Creative Cloud Assets folder, as you saw. So this time I'm actually simply going to create a new team project. Now, the distinction between a local project and a team project, for the benefit of those who have not experienced this, a local project is a PR proj file that contains an inventory of all the digital assets, audio and video, that you will require for an edit. It also contains all of your bin structure, and it contains essentially your sequences, which are, I suppose, glorified EDLs or edit decision lists that assemble your shots into a playlist. All that information is then stored hierarchically inside a native PR proj file stored on your disk that can only be read by Premiere Pro on your edit station or on other people's systems. It's not particularly useful in a shareable sense. If you store that PR proj file on a standard network volume and you attempt to collaborate with other people, you'll find yourself in difficulty quite quickly because only one person can have it open at once and save on over the top of it. You could easily be overwriting somebody else's changes. There's no version management and there's no useful project consolidation. So even if perhaps you email a Premiere project file to somebody else and they return it to you with the changes, how are you going to, if you've continued editing in the meantime, how are you going to consolidate those changes? And typically you will find you re-import the project and you end up with many duplicated items, and ultimately, the whole thing falls down quite quickly, which is why we invented two different ways to work hand in hand with other editors, and those are the team project and the production. So if we talk first about the team project, because that has the closest similarity, I suppose, to the way a local project works. It's fairly identical, that it contains, again, an inventory of all the digital assets you require, and a series of sequences, bins, and those EDLs that you might need. But it can also work in After Effects as well, so it can host After Effects compositions, and you can also have Media Encoder act as a first-class citizen application to be able to export stuff from there as well. So if I go now ahead and create a team project, it's basically creating this inside our cloud database. So I can call this Guatemala Edit Thursday. And here again, I will decide which collaborators I want to have involved. So similarly to the libraries platform within Creative Cloud, here I will decide which collaborators I want to invite. I'm going to add Chetan. He will be added to the list of people who can collaborate inside this team project. I'll hit close and go OK. And now you see it's inviting Chetan, it's synchronizing the project with the cloud itself. And now, even though this looks very similar to a local project window, and I'll create one just as a test so that you can see the differences. If I move this pane, forgive me, if I move this pane over to, what is going on there? There's the project here, and if I go back to the team project there, you can see that the two windows look remarkably similar. That's a team project, that is a local project. What are the differences? Well, if I zoom in, you should be able to see that, first of all, within the team project, I have little avatars for all of my collaborators up the top. Doesn't exist in a local project. And equally, down the bottom of the screen, where you have your usual icons and legend for new bin, new sequence, new item, we have two additional ones over here, and they are marked Get Changes and Share Changes. Now, every single action I perform whilst in a team project, if I just close this one right now, I don't need it. Whilst in a team project, every action I perform is taking place in a virtual sandbox in the cloud server. So that's important for two reasons. It means that the database is completely holding my hand and managing the history and the timeline of what is going on within the team project. And also, if some kind of problem occurs with my system and it crashes or burns or whatever else, and I can't continue to work, I can simply sign in on another station with my Adobe ID and I can continue working where I was. You remember I mentioned your experience with Creative Cloud is governed by your Adobe identity and the fact that you are signed in with it. So that is all well. I can now begin to ingest some footage. So I will go again to the local synchronized version of my assets. I know this is slowing things down a little bit, but I will just share the screen. This is the window I'm going to share the assets from. I'm going to import them using the standard drag and drop method. Here they all are. Here are the clips. I'm going to now drag them into Premiere. You won't see the two simultaneously, but if I select those, drag them across, they're now ingested in Premiere. I can switch back to Premiere. There it is. And I now have a series of assets. And you'll notice my share changes icon has lit up at the bottom of the screen. Now I can carry on working. I can create some bins for these assets. Let's see, new bin. I can call this Thursday Dailies. I can load all of the video and audio clips into there. I also have a voiceover, which I might create a bin for. And some music. We'll just load those up so that when my next collaborator joins the project, they can see more easily what's happening in there. But notice, until I elect to share these changes, anybody else collaborating will still see an empty project. This is my private sandbox until such time as I decide that I've reached a point in my workflow that my changes are appropriate for sharing. So I will share the changes. And then it's important here to always add good comment metadata. It's one of those things, you get out what you put in. So I will say ingested, sorry, I can't find the capital button here, ingested days rushes and created bins ready for editing. I'll hit share. And now, meanwhile, several thousand miles away on Chetan's Premiere editing station, he will be seeing some changes light up within the bottom. He will get his icon saying get latest changes should light up to notify him that a change has been made to the project. So he can start looking and viewing those assets straight away. If then I decide to create a simple sequence, I'll drag 4 clips together, make the sequence, give it a name, call it first assembly. I'm going to go back to my editing workspace so you can see what we're doing. There we are, 4 assembled clips. I will load the team project. I want the voiceover underneath as well. And I want the music underneath that. Now I can begin to see the voiceover has been timed in such a way
Real towns and on the shores of Lake Atitlan
to be about a minute long. So I'm going to have to assemble about a minute's worth of shots to marry up to that. In the meantime, I want to see how Chetan feels about this assembly I've created, so I can go and share those changes and say, this is a first string out of shots. What do you think? And I can go ahead and share that. In the meanwhile, then, while I'm thinking about going through the dailies here, I'm actually going to load some more of these shots into the source window. I can have a look and decide which ones I want to use. I think, yeah, I'll just have a bit of this shot here while the tire rolls across the middle. A few seconds of that would be good. I may introduce that to the edit later on. In the meanwhile, I can ask Chetan to make some kind of change. Maybe he can add a title or a color LUT to one of those clips if he wants to actually tweak the way that looks. But I can carry on working through these rushes and deciding which ones I like the look of. Hopefully, if he's making some changes in the background now, they should light up at the bottom of my screen to tell me, first of all, it would tell me that he's inside the sequence if he is. And then I will see the changes come through when they light up. And I will just keep selecting a few more shots. And what we should be able to show you in a little while is when I begin to sort of assemble these shots into the timeline. It's actually going to, I'll get to a point where I've now essentially made a new version of the edit. I decided to share those changes with Chetan, and I will say increased length of edit. Share. And what it's doing is synchronizing with the cloud database. Here we are, you see, a newer version of the team project has been shared. Meanwhile, please get the latest changes and resolve any conflicts. So at this point, I was trying to tread on Chetan's toes, so I don't want to do that. I can say, share the difference. What I should see is the ability to get changes down the bottom here. So what I'll actually do is I'll close the team project. I will not share my changes because I know that there are some unreconciled ones. I'll open the team project again and we'll have a look. There we are. Now it's telling me there are latest changes to be retrieved. that will synchronize. Oh, look, this is what the conflict resolution piece is at the core of team projects. When you get into a situation where two people are working on one sequence simultaneously, you'll get out of jail free card, I suppose, is the ability to actually have this conflict resolution dialogue save the situation. So it offers you a choice between keeping your version and overwriting your collaborators, taking their version, or for safety's sake, copying and renaming your version, taking a shared version. Let's do this because I want to see what Chetan did to introduce any captions or titles and maintain them. Okay, that looks good. Yeah, image caption here. I quite like that effect. That looks like a motion graphic that's been built in After Effects. So I'm quite happy with that. But in the meantime, it's made a copy of my sequence here, first assembly, and I'd continued building the edit. So what we can do is drag my copy of the sequence down here. And this is known as pancaking. So we have essentially created a fork in the road where we've got Chetan's version of the sequence here, the caption, and my version. But all I can see is introduce 3 more shots. So I'm just going to copy them, and then I'm going to paste them in with the video tracks targeted up here. And I have amalgamated the 2, and then I no longer need my old version here. I can close that panel. Now I can go ahead and say, synchronize the changes, got us back on track, amalgamated 2 versions of sequence, share. And then it should be the case, if we just test out the synchronization one more time, Chetan should be able to synchronize those changes at his end. He will see the new version of the sequence that has his caption and my new shots. And then he's now at liberty to create another caption, or perhaps a color LUT or something like that. We can see from the effects badges on the clips if he changes anything. I should get a notification going through. There may be some kind of synchronization delay just now, but what I'm going to do then is close the project one more time and reopen. And let's take a look. No unreconciled changes just yet, so that's looking good. I will load up the sequence. That's my extra version. So if I do a search for first assembly, this is the one I want here. There we go. Yeah, so that's fine. And we're now reaching a stage where he's obviously happy with my changes. I'm going to use that caption and potentially reuse that later on as well. So I just want to put that on the track up here. I have the correct one targeted. There we go. Sorry, bear with me a second. Copy, reuse, paste. And in each instance of the caption, I can go into the graphics page and I can actually simply manipulate the information that's in the caption. So it says image caption here. Get rid of that. I can edit this one here. So it says image caption here. If I select the text edit tool here, I can go ahead and modify that text, image caption here, and I can say boys playing football. And that caption is then relevant to the second shot, so I would move that further down. And I can see the ball is orange and this guy here has an orange shirt, so I can use something like the color effects palette to be able to use some secondary color correction. So if I single out the orange on his shirt and look at the map that's created from that, I can widen out the hues that it's looking at. And the saturation, luminance, oh, there we go, something like that, so that it's just correcting the aspects of the ball and the shirt. Turn that off, and then you see here I can really raise the saturation to make the, you see how I'm making the shirt, the ball super shiny. There we go. I've now got a caption and I've got a real popping orange color to my particular shot there. It's quite nice, perhaps a little exaggerated, but you get the idea. Then back in the team project again, I would share my changes and I would say repositioned caption, added orange secondary correction. Then hit share. And again, it's telling me to reconcile those changes. But this time I will just share them, get latest changes, and I will say again, let's just keep both versions to be on the safe side, resolve, and then we can reconcile those changes. But the key here is obviously to establish who's doing what particular role within a team project before pulling in two different directions. If you get into problems, your safety net is in the form of the media browser here, where I can go to my team projects versions, and I can go to, let's see, Guatemala Edit Thursday. And here I get what's called a history slider. Now, if I turn on this time machine here, the team project version slider, that allows me at any stage to go back to any historical version of the project right to the beginning before any media was ingested. So you see, I've got created team project. And again, this is where I mentioned it's important to put comment-based metadata. Created the team project, ingested days rushes, first string out of shots. I can see Chetan added a lower third. That's great. Got us back on track, amalgamated two versions. Second clip introduced color corrected by Chetan. I can see that. And then I did some color correction as well and repositioned the caption. So you see how we're able to work hand in hand, and the two stations are submitting changes to one another, and the team projects database is arbitrating in the middle and making sure that all changes are accurately updated and saved, and any conflicts are resolved. So that is team projects. So if I close down this team project now, we can also have a look at another mechanism of sharing called productions. So I won't save the changes in that just now. Okay. So the way productions works is that it can allow multiple editors to work sort of in locked bins or locked projects simultaneously. So this is much more conceived of a film workflow where you have multiple editors simultaneously collaborating on edit stations that are maybe quite close together on a shared storage infrastructure. But indeed, as I mentioned, using Lucid Link, you can make your cloud storage emulate the shared storage network as well. So what I'm going to do here to actually demonstrate this, rather than collaborating with another user, I'm going to run, let's see, this might be tricky on Zoom, but I'm going to run two virtualized versions of Premiere on one desktop. So if I load that up over there, you should see that in green. And then over here, if I run my virtual hypervisor, if I stop and share that, you can see I've essentially got two copies of Premiere running at once. Do you see that? So this version of Premiere here is sitting inside the Windows Hyper-V hypervisor. This is already inside the production. And then over here on this other screen, if I stop sharing and go to Premiere Pro and share, on here, I can open the same production. And I can see where I have a user already actually in the bins. So here I've got the bin of dancer dailies. So there's some people dancing in the street that you'll be able to see. There we are. But inside the production itself, which is over here, there we go. They come up with a red padlock to tell me that the assistant is already using them. So this is how the conflicts are resolved here. Essentially, only one person has access to a bin project at any one time for write access. And in the meantime, anybody else can have read-only access. And this is important because if we look at the folder structure on the disk, bear with me a second while I go over to the shared production. It's here. You will see, so if you look carefully at the structure of directories and sub-projects within the production here, if I go to my disk that's actually just a shared folder, I've got to stop sharing, share that, share the desktop. Here we are. You can see that that mirrors the exact folder structure that was available inside Premiere: dailies, scenes, reels, miscellaneous, conforms, and social edits. And then within the dailies, The two bins that were already open to the other station have a PR lock file in there. So the key here is that when I go back into my production station here in Premiere, I can work simultaneously on my scenes project. I can open that up for Skater, and you'll see I have a sequence here that's already partially built. There's a guy in a skate park somewhere near Venice Beach, I think. I can match frame back to this edit. Now, this particular shot that's been loaded up here, all of the rushes that belong to this, I can open them in the project. If I reveal in project here, and it will then open the project. And even though it's locked, it tells me, look, this is locked to the assistant. I can still reuse elements of it because I'm saving this edit in a different project. You see, I'm saving it in the Skater project here. And no matter how many clips I add to the edit, I keep stringing those out. The information held in the edit project never gets any bigger. Sorry, it's this one here. Still only contains one sequence, even when I save the changes. So the key here is not only are you able to have a workflow where you have multiple concurrent open projects with a hierarchy of who is able to write to them and who is contributing material to them, but you're also able to constrain the size of those projects. So this was a key criticism that used to be leveled at Premiere Pro historically, where people would say to us, projects get too big, there's too much bloat, particularly if you're working on a 2-hour feature film with 6 20-minute reels with 10,000 clips and all sorts of motion stabilization, warp stabilization data and captions and graphics and whatever else. You could find yourself in a position where a project might take 10 to 15 minutes to open, and if for whatever reason there was any instability in your system or any issues, you had a crash, that's, another 10, 15 minutes to get up and running again. So that is completely left behind by the use of productions. So the key here is that the use of productions is limitless. You can open the very largest of productions here compared to team projects, which is very cloud centric and is great for sort of short form, short films, trailer based, social media based content, but ultimately reaches a ceiling in terms of the number of clips it might handle. No such limitations in productions. And of course, again, with productions, you've still got the flexibility of what type of storage you will use underneath, whether it's a shared SAN on Ethernet or local fiber channel or something like that, or whether it is some kind of cloud NAS such as LucidLink. Be aware that it's not a great idea to use any kind of conventional cloud collaboration storage such as Dropbox or OneDrive or even Creative Cloud storage for productions, simply because the creation, if I stop sharing and go back to my folder again here, if I go to the PC and the network volume here, when I mentioned there is a structure to the way these productions are laid out on the disk, yes, the PR lock file and also a key aspect of the production called the prod set. The prod set is the database that tracks the movement of assets between your sub-projects within the production. This needs to have very rapid access on the file system. Any edit station in Premiere that is saving the prod set file or needs access to the PR lock file has to have instantaneous read and write access. If you use something like Dropbox or OneDrive, you're going to have a slight delay, however small, in the synchronization of those files, and you may get yourself into the sort of trouble I referred to earlier on in just sharing regular project files, which again, historically was an issue. So this works very well with proper on-site NAS or SAN-based storage, or something like LucidLink, which I recommend you look into more if it's something that the capabilities of it appeal, because as I say, LucidLink works as an emulated local USB disk, whereas in fact it's a piece of middleware that's doing some very sophisticated block streaming from Amazon S3, and the footage is being made to appear as if it were on my own disk, and indeed that's achieved by I just share my system computer management window here. You'll see within this I have something called a store lib virtual storage under the disk drives. So you can see at a very low level, this is an ATA or IDE drive. You probably can't see that floating window, but it's a fully emulated physical disk that's actually Amazon S3 storage. Very, very powerful tool for collaborating inside productions. So just to say, this is my back in Premiere. If I'm sharing that again, here we go. This is the version of sequence I'm working on. Any of the contributory shots I can see, for example, this one has had a monochrome LUT put on it. I'm not quite sure about that. That's called Day 5 Skater Clip 8. So I can match frame, go back to the original. I can reveal it in the project. Here it is. Yeah, it's got an orange marker on it. But what's happened here is that we've had a master clip effect added to that shot. Not too sure about that. So I'm going to ask my assistant on the other Premiere station to modify that and remove that for me. So if I now share the other edit station, it's going to be the virtual environment here. I'm going to share that, and I'm going to have my user called assistant. By the way, the identity here of each collaborator within a production is set within the preferences under collaboration. You simply choose and identify your name over here. So in the main station, I'm called Niels, my name, and in here I'm called assistant as well. This is not necessarily governed by your identity in Creative Cloud in the same way. This can all be used on local standalone systems that are simply sharing on a local network, SAN infrastructure. But anyway, the clip that I have an issue with that's here, yes, I can see I've already removed that. I'm going to go to the color tool. Let's say I want to look for something in the effects that is a super washed out blue. So I'll go to Lumetri presets. I'll look for blue. Let's have a look, blue cold or something like that. I can then drag that onto those rushes. If I load up my source, I can see it there. I'll load blue cold onto there. There we are. That's a much more sort of interesting look that I was going for. When I save the project here, it should ripple through such that when I reload the sequence over here, bear with me a second, I'm just going to load that. That's got the source shot on it. Save all. In fact, I'm going to save all, close all projects and save all. There we are. File, close production. Then if I come back over here to the other station, share screen, get the other copy of Premiere, share. Up here, you see, I know that the assistant has changed something because there's a yellow icon here. So what I can go is refresh project. It reopens that, and there we are. You see, even though this raw clip existed for me in a locked project that I had no access to, I've asked my assistant to make the change on the master clip effect. That has rippled through, and now inside my sequence bin project, still no additional elements or items, but the raw metadata of that orange clip has been modified, and it now contains the look I want. You see, so it's a very interesting way of having two people or more, limitless in fact, all collaborating simultaneously on a set of projects which are being governed by the productions platform within Premiere, and the prod set database and the PR lock files are safeguarding the changes to make sure that only one person at a time gets right access to a project, and the legend within the production itself clearly identifies who has access to what. My assistant has now closed out of the production as well, so I can also refresh that. And yeah, you should see that that won't be locked anymore. There we are. I can now go back to writing that, and now I am the user who has right access to that. Similarly with the skater, I can unlock it for my own use once the other person has closed out of the production and saved and made the changes that they wanted to. So let's see. Thanks, appreciate the presentations. Sure, we'll check that out. That sounds good. For now, that's all from me. I'm going to stop sharing this particular application, go back in the room, and we will open it up to Q&A from the participants if there is time. But thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Niels. What I will do is we do have a few questions. So I'm going to bring on my colleague Manoj Madhavan, who is the editor of Broadcast and Film magazine, which happens to be the official online publication for the Broadcast India show. He's just going to take a few questions for you guys, and then we can close out the day. Yep, Manoj, over to you.
Neil, thank you so much for an excellent session.
Thank you.
Hi, Chetan. The first question, Niels, is latency a critical factor in remote production?
Yes, as I sort of touched on, to the point where essentially team projects and productions are both allow you a blank slate in terms of your choice of storage infrastructure. We don't dictate any of it. You can use Adobe storage, you can use Lucid Link, you can use local shared SANs, it's up to you. But there will be a reliance of productions on there being no delay in the file synchronization, which is why it doesn't lend itself for use with Dropbox or even Creative Cloud files. And it needs something with instantaneous, zero latency update to the file system, either on a local shared SAN or something that emulates that in the form of Lucid Link, which makes your S3 bucket look as if it were a local SAN in terms of the quick reaction and the quick updates of any save actions that you've put into the system. Does that answer the question, hopefully?
Yeah, I think it more or less gives a clear indication.
It's much less of a factor for team projects because the server is managing the conflict resolution itself and will make sure that none of it occurs from that side.
The other question was, what are the challenges associated with live remote sports production? Now, if we talk about the recent Olympics, was Adobe involved in any aspect of that Olympics sports production?
We were certainly closely involved with the Euro football tournament, which has a lot of close parallels in terms of workflows. That was interesting because this time, actually, due to limitations on travel of the pandemic, the broadcast center in Hilversum, Netherlands, became out of bounds to the editors, even though they spent quite some time building the structure and having all of the high-powered edit stations built ready for the tournament. The editors were not physically allowed to travel to be there. So we actually then used a virtualized desktop kind of setup, very similar to how a company called Bebop, one of our partners, tends to work, but they use Teradici, PCO IP, and various other desktop streaming toys. So they were able to actually set up a presence in West London, and each of them had the small Nook, the tiny little PCs that you can get that are just a few centimeters square, just enough to drive a monitor and a keyboard and mouse. And then they actually all ran virtualized desktop sessions connected to high-powered edit stations some distance away and all over fiber, so that latency was kept to a minimum, sub 10 milliseconds, which 10 to 20 milliseconds is really sort of the optimum limit we find when you're using virtualized remote stations in order to have the responsiveness and the tactility of an edit station feeling just as if you are using a local keyboard and mouse. So yeah, we're well versed with sports workflows, both locally and remotely as well.
Coming to the last question, what are the challenges associated with remote production as far as OTT and news production is concerned?
So OTT for live consumption or for offline streaming?
Offline streaming,
yeah. The challenges are the same as they are with many other content workflows. Chetan, I don't know if you have any views on this, but basically you have to decide where your computer is going to live and your storage is going to live and where your people and your project metadata will be also. Adobe allows really the greatest flexibility to have any combination of those. So One thing that we found very quickly going into the pandemic was that it completely underlined the message about decentralization and cloud services that we had been extolling for some time. And people were able to get up and running very quickly, whether or not they wanted to continue to exploit expensive hardware they had an existing investment in, or whether they perhaps had the luxury of more of a blank page to be able to select technology a la carte off the shelf and begin to work with VDI-based virtualized compute stations straight away. We can permit both or either in any combination. It's one of the strong points of the large portfolio of partners that we have worked with for many years now. We have somebody to fit into any particular workflow or any particular tech challenge.
Thank you, Niels. That's all from my end.
Great.
Over to you, Pranali.
Great. So thank you so much, Chetan. Thank you so much, Niels. Thank you so much, Manoj, for joining us for this session. It's truly been interesting, and I'm sure our audiences have a great amount of takeaways from that.